Alright, welcome everyone. I would actually bring up me first. There we go. Okay. Hello, welcome to another episode of the Gothic Mystic podcast. Today's show is the continuation of the usual Monday thing, where we go through Enoch, me and my co-host, my guest here, Kenny. Let me bring him on real quick here. Unmute you. How you doing, brother?
Good. How you doing?
Pretty good. Looking forward to this thing.
Me too.
All right. Like we said before, we ended at chapter 12. From where we've read so far, do you want to discuss anything or kind of bring up any ideas of what we've talked about?
Um. Oh, I don't know. God said there's going to be a judgment day.
Mhm.
There's angels have free will too.
Yes, they
Angels
do.
can sin. There's a record of their sins, some of their sins,
Hmm.
right here. We already covered. I don't want to bring up too much. Other than Azazel, Azazel, only because you had mentioned it like on Discord, so I wanted to talk
Yeah,
for a second because in text things don't, um,
yeah, that's right. I had a
some
because
things are lost in text or whatever.
very yeah,
Um, I think that as far as in Revelation, that's kind of you know the devil that comes out of the pit or whatever.
hmm hmm
I that very well could be.
yeah.
But I don't think there's just one devil. I
No,
don't think
there's not.
it's a title, and you know, the one that tempted Jesus wasn't Azazel because Azazel's trapped in chains. Even Peter was still writing about him
Hmm.
being trapped in chains after all that took place. So,
Yeah,
uh,
and for
I
mhm.
personally wouldn't necessarily put too much time into thinking about who is the devil because it could be anybody. It could be
Yeah.
your wife. It could be your best friend. It could be, anybody.
Yeah, because
So
Jesus himself
Peter.
was it. That's exactly where I was going to go with it. Jesus himself called it was Peter, right? Peter, an
Yeah.
adversary, devil, Satan. Whenever, he didn't want anything to happen to Jesus because at that point they were believing that Jesus was going to bring the kingdom at that point, but
Yeah.
he only had that very limited view perspective of the timeline. And so whenever he kind of freaked out, I was like, no, this can never be. At that point, he was the adversary to the Father's plan. He was a
Yeah.
devil. He was a Satan to the Father's
Yeah.
plan.
Absolutely. And also to the other point, just because Azazel had all sin ascribed to him doesn't mean he was the leader either. Jaza was actually the leader of all of the fallen angels.
Which that brings up a
So that
whole different
also
question.
goes to prove that um, it's not your underling. You're not responsible for what your underlings do.
Hmm.
You're only responsible for what you do.
Yeah.
um, God's fair, and the punishment fits the crime, so to speak. And if Azazel did all the extra bad things and taught extra more bad sin to men,
Hmm.
then he should deserve a harsher punishment, than
Yeah.
everybody else. But it could now that I'm thinking about it also be that all of the devils that are locked underneath come out in the end.
Yeah.
So I mean, might
Well,
not just be one there either.
and I think that's kind of what I think it's the fourth trump, the third, fourth, and fifth trumpet, looking from a literal perspective, mind you.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of
Yeah.
what that alludes to, because the third shows some kind of star coming out of the heavens, landing on Earth, that creates this large cloud that causes the fourth trumpet, which is the 1/3 of the day or something like that, being blocked out. And then the fifth trumpet is all the, in my perspective, all the demons coming from the bottomless pit, and all of those are technically devils and satans. Again, it's a title,
Hmm.
even though they're again, literal perspective, my perspective. Do your own research.
Yeah, and some of that can't be literal. Some of Revelations is a real hard book to take
Yes.
100% literal.
Yeah. And that's why I
And I'm a
say
very
it's.
literal person. I'm a
Mm,
very literal person.
yeah.
But I do go back to, the Roswell thing. A star fell from heaven.
Hmm.
Everybody calls it a alien or whatever, or a weather balloon's what the official
Yeah.
story is.
And that
But
kind of
nobody
goes
believes
along
that.
with.
But now, if um, the military likes DUMBs, right? Deep underground military bases. What if
Mhm.
that thing told them where to dig to get the extra help they were looking for?
It's very
Because he
possible.
knew where all the angels were buried. And where do they go? In the middle of the desert in Nevada?
Kind of just odd. And that's probably
Right.
some stuff that that most of us may never know.
I wouldn't be surprised if we dug down to where he was chained up and we can't unchain him, but he can teach us all sorts of things. And we use him for that
Yeah.
because we're greedy. We want power. We want an advantage over the other country. We want to know how to control our people better. We want,
Hmm.
you know, all sorts of
Yeah.
things for personal gain.
And for those who are kind of wondering, the discussion of Discord, I think the Discord link, at least for my Discord, is in the description. If not, just go to my YouTube, youtube.com, the Gothic Mystic, and on all my videos, I actually have a link on there. When it come, I spent some time just out of nowhere studying a little bit of demonology, but also kind of I think it was Ezekiel 38, Genesis 1, and something else. And I don't I want to say I was kind of developing a theory that it, to me, seemed like it was connected. Mind you, I was corrected a little bit, which is fine. But what you said, you had a very good point on that, and I'm still kind of just working on things. It's not something I'm focusing on. Just that one day, I was just thinking on it. I'm like, I wonder, and I just started kind of starting studying away, which is perfectly fine.
Hmm.
Okay, so yeah, let's go and begin again. Everyone, don't
Sure.
forget to go to the Facebook if y'all haven't already. Facebook.com/the Gothic Mystic. The website, www.thegothicmystic.com. And if you're interested in supporting this show, this project, patreon.com/the Gothic Mystic. All right, so chapter 12. Do you want to read first, or do you want me to?
Um, I can. I
Okay.
scrolled a little bit, so I got to find it again. Okay, there it is. Okay. And previous to all these things, Enoch was hidden, and not one of the children of men knew where he was hidden, and where he was, and what had become of him. And all his deeds were with the holy ones and with the watchers in his days. And I, Enoch, was praising the great Lord and the King of the world. And behold, the watchers called to me, Enoch the scribe, and said to me, Enoch, thou scribe of justice, go announce to the watchers of heaven, who have left the high heaven and the holy eternal place, and have contaminated themselves with women, and have done as the children of men do, and have taken to themselves wives, and are contaminated in great contamination upon the earth, but upon earth they shall have no peace nor forgiveness of sin, for they will not enjoy their children. They will see the murder of their beloved ones, and they will lament over the destruction of their children, and will petition to eternity but mercy and peace will not be unto them.
Um, like I'm gonna do the same thing as what I did last week. The scripture reference after the first verse here was Genesis 5:21-24. This one's let me see here. This one's actually saying that uh, that's actually whenever Enoch disappeared is whenever God took him up. But I think isn't there another reference in another Apocrypha where he went he went away and then came back, went away and came back, and each time he went away and came back, it was for longer and longer, and then eventually the Father took him?
Um, I don't remember offhand.
Okay.
Um,
It's been a while
you
since
know what
came across
Genesis
that.
what Genesis says doesn't contradict this at all.
No, it does
Just
not.
because he was hidden. I think later there's a more of a story of him being taken up in this book, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But I mean, as far as I remember, the only thing I ever read about Enoch when I was just reading the Bible was Enoch lived this many years. He was a righteous man. He walked with God, and then God took him.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that didn't die, and the Bible said, you know, he's he's the one of the two people that the Bible didn't say they died. And
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
Enoch and Elijah are the
Here's
only
an
two people that
yeah.
got taken up.
Yep. And this is my personal belief. The two witnesses in Revelation, I believe it is Elijah and Enoch, because they are
I,
the two human beings that we know of in history that have never tasted death, the physical death at least.
right, and the two witnesses do die,
Yes.
and so I would agree with you. I think
Mm-hmm.
it would make sense
Yeah.
for that.
I find it interesting how in the second verse, it says his activities were with the holy ones and the watchers. So that tells me that there were more watchers than the ones who betrayed and went down to the earth. So there was only which actually I think
And
this goes along with the 1/3.
and not all the watchers are bad.
Correct.
Not all the watchers at this point, at least, had fallen and sinned. Maybe later on they do. Maybe later on they teach bad things and don't sleep with women because they know that's going to get them locked in chains.
That's very possible, because that is actually a perspective that came into my mind. I think either last week or before then, that yes, these scriptures go for from the beginning of whenever God created everything to just I want to say about 100-ish, maybe I want to say about 100 years after Christ. So we actually have from this time right now till that point when the last book was written, when things in our time could have happened in heaven. So there could have been even more things that happened that we're not aware of, because there
Yeah.
could be like a progressive thing. And I'm gonna say that with the fallen angels coming down, I personally want to say that this is actually related to the 1/3 related to, referencing in Revelation of 1/3 of the angels falling.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if 1/3 of the angels fell and only 200 are locked in chains, I mean, how many angels do you think God has?
Yeah, exactly.
Way more than
So
600.
yeah, so it really
Way
makes you
more.
want to go, hmm.
Right.
All right. Okay. So chapter 13. And Enoch went and said, Azazel, you shall have no peace. A severe sentence has been passed against you, that you should be bound, and you shall not have rest or mercy, toleration or request granted, because of the unrighteousness which you have taught, and because of all the works of godlessness. I almost said godliness. I'm like, no, that's not right. The
Yeah.
unrighteousness and sin which you have shown to men. Then I went and spoke to them all together, and they were all afraid, and fear and trembling seized them. And they asked me to write a petition for them, that they might find forgiveness, and to read their petition in the presence of the Lord of heaven. They had been forbidden to speak with him, with the Father, mind you, Ancient of Days, nor were they to lift up their eyes to heaven for shame of their sins, because they had been condemned. Then I wrote out their petition and the prayer in regard to their spirits and their deeds individually, and in regard to their requests that they should obtain forgiveness and forbearance. And I went off and sat down at the waters of Dan, and the land of Dan, to the southwest of Hermon. I read their petition until I fell asleep. And I had a dream, and I saw a vision of their chastisement. And a voice came to me, and I would reprimand, reprove them. And when I woke up, I came to them, and they were all sitting gathered together, weeping in Abizjail, which is between Lebanon and Sinister, with their faces covered. And I recounted to them all the visions that I had seen when I was asleep, and I began to speak the words of righteousness, and to reprimand the heavenly watchers. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there.
Hmm.
I want
I
to,
mean, the first thing I noticed is
yeah,
God told them they're gonna, or the message Enoch was bringing is you're gonna want to petition, and he's not gonna listen. And the first thing they want to do is petition. It's kind of funny. Like, yeah, okay. I just told you it's not gonna work, but okay.
and I think this is still what kind of baffles me about the entire thing is that they were wanting Enoch to act as the intercessor for them rather than them being
Yes,
the intercessor for Enoch and the human race. It's
correct.
like, seriously?
Yeah. They wanted Enoch to do their job for them because they can't do their job anymore. They're not allowed because they've defiled themselves with women. That they've made themselves unholy.
It still baffles me that the fact that how, and I don't think we'll really understand how bad this thing was, since they knew how bad it was, and I'm thinking that this portion of whenever it says that they weren't allowed to look up, I think that's more of a is it, you think it's a metaphor that they couldn't look up to the
I
heavens?
don't. I think they couldn't see through the veil anymore.
Hmm.
They look up and they just see the sky. They can't see heaven anymore like they used to.
That's one way. That's one way of seeing it. I don't think we'll ever understand the great.
I don't think it would mean that they physically can't lift
Yeah,
their head up, but maybe. I mean, maybe so.
yeah,
Maybe.
it's
Maybe
very
that's exactly
possible.
what it means. I don't know.
Yeah.
Either one would make sense to me.
Right. You want me to read 14, or you want to get it?
I can, but I want to. I just want to look at something real
Okay.
quick in verse 7. Can you read verse 7 again?
Sure. And I think I know where you're going with that. And I went off and sat down at the waters of Dan, in the land of Dan, to the southwest of Hermon. I read their petition until I fell asleep.
Okay, mine translation um, has it a little different, but it's just weird um, to because later in the book there's north, south, east, and west again,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it says north, south, east, and west. But in this case, it doesn't say south and west. It says, and going, I sat down near the waters of Dan in Dan, which is to the right of the evening side of Hermon,
Hmm.
which it also has in parentheses south and west. But it's just kind of weird
That is a strange
that
way of putting it.
this one thing, I don't know if that means anything or what, but it's funny because if you're looking at the evening side of Hermon, where the sun is in the evening,
Mm-hmm.
then look to the right. You're looking to the south or the southwest.
There could be something there that's a lot deeper that we don't even understand right now.
Yeah,
Hmm.
but that goes into you know directions.
Yeah,
What are they?
which is actually
Which direction is really that direction? And for how long is it really that direction before you're going in a different direction, depending on where your center of reference is?
yeah. I think I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But that's funny that in this one case it says to the right of the evening side of Hermon. It's weird,
That
but
is a
hey.
strange way of putting it. I'd say
I just
let's look
wanted to
at
point that
the.
out because
I'd
I
say
thought
let's
it
look
was
at the Hebrew, but that's not really an option.
no, because they didn't hold on to it the way they, you know, yeah, whatever. It was probably originally written in Hebrew, as far as we know.
Yeah.
It was probably originally written in a language that was lost, but whenever God had the people rewrite all the books and then the books of wisdom and all of that,
Mm-hmm.
and came in, you remember what I'm talking about. I don't remember what it was, but it was God's perfect opportunity to replace every book that was lost
I
and put it
think I
back
remember
into
you
Hebrew,
saying mentioning it
because
like
they
months
lost all
back.
the books when they came back from Babylon, and which whoever the prophet was at the time took 5 scribes into a room for like 30 days. They didn't eat, they didn't sleep, they wrote, and they rewrote the Bible right then
Hmm.
by channeling the Spirit, all 5 of them at the same time, or
Interesting.
channeling the Word or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly what the Bible says happened. So
Interesting. Hmm. Cool.
it wouldn't surprise me that the oldest copy that you could find would be from about 300 BC, because that's when they were all channeled. That should be the oldest copy you can find
Yeah.
of any Hebrew writing.
That would make sense.
If God's not a liar, you're not going to find anything older unless it's a scrap in a trash heap that somehow didn't, you know.
Yeah.
That looks like it was destroyed by raiders invading the city. That should be all you found that's older than like 300 BC. Because God's not a liar.
True story. All right.
Am I supposed to be reading or you? I'm
Uh,
sorry.
Either or
I
doesn't
guess
matter.
me.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's fine.
My fault.
You're
Took
good.
sidebar. Okay. Chapter 14. This writing is the word of justice and the admonition of the watchers, who are from eternity, as the holy and great one commanded it in this vision. I saw in my sleep what I now will relate with the tongue of flesh and with my breath, which the great one has given to the mouth of men, that they might converse with it and understand it in their hearts. Old English is hard to read
I'm
sometimes.
still kind of wondering why he worded that way. Oh.
Well,
Okay.
it was a translation from Ethiopian. So this is an Old English translation from the Ethiopian Bible. of what they had in the right around 1900, 1890 or whatever.
Well, the fact that he is specifically saying that he's saying it with a tongue of flesh, I don't really remember. Maybe once or twice in the Old Testament it actually says. I think that has to do with like saying I am of flesh, saying this stuff to the fallen watchers who were divine,
You
technically.
know, I I think this is a great way of describing how God um, works through the people, though, because He tells them something, and then they process it internally and test it to be true or whatever, and then decide on their own to speak it with their tongue of flesh. It's not like God possessed them and
Yeah,
told them to do it.
yeah,
He told them and still gave them a choice of
very
whether or
true.
not to say anything.
Yeah,
And I think, that's the way God works.
yeah.
So if somebody is like possessed and gets taken over and all of a sudden starts spouting stuff out, that's not God. I'm sorry. But anyway, it could happen for writing. That could definitely happen for writing.
Yes.
But then you'd still have a chance to read over it before you decided, am I going to share this with anybody or not?
Or am I gonna toss
Or is
it?
this not from God? Is this from something else?
Yeah.
You have a chance to filter it before sending it out
Mm-hmm.
and a chance to decide whether or not to do it.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
anyway,
Yeah.
how far did I
Uh,
read that time?
I think you're on 3.
Okay. As he has created and given to men the power to understand the word of knowledge, thus also he has created me and given to me the power to unbraid the watchers, the sons of heaven. I have written your petition, and in my vision it appeared to me thus that your petition will not be granted in all the days of the world, and that judgment has been passed over you, and nothing will be granted unto you. And from now on you will not ascend into heaven to all eternity. And upon earth it has been decreed that they shall bind you for all the days of the world. But before this, you will have to see the destruction of your beloved children, and you will not be able to possess them, but they shall fall before you by the sword. Your petition for them will not be granted unto you, nor the one for yourselves. And while you are weeping and praying, ye cannot speak a single word from the writing which I have written. And the vision appeared to me thus: Behold, clouds in the vision invited me, and a fog invited me, and the course of the stars and lightning drove and pressed me, and the winds in the vision gave me wings and drove me, and they lifted me up into heaven, and I went till I approached near a wall which was built of crystal, and a tongue of fire surrounded it, and it began to cause me to fear. And I went into the tongue of fire, and approached near to the large house, which was built of crystals, and the walls of the house were like the floor inlaid with crystals, and the groundwork was crystals. The ceiling was like the course of the stars, and of the lightning, and cherubim of fire were between them, and their heaven was water. A flaming fire surrounded the walls, and its doors burned with fire. And I went into this house, and it was hot like fire, and cold like ice, and there was nothing pleasant, and no life in it. Fear covered me, and trembling seized me. And as I was shaking and trembling, I fell down on my face and saw in a vision, and behold, there was a second house, larger than the other. Okay, I want to talk about the first house before we start talking about the second one.
Okay.
This is a long chapter.
Yeah. We're like halfway through it.
um, so did you pick anything up from the first house?
um, I know the reference that it gives for scripture is actually in Genesis, really, Revelation 4:6. And before the throne there was a sea of glass like unto crystal, and in the midst of the throne and the round about the throne there were four beasts full of eyes before and behind. And then also Revelation 21:10-12. Is there anything on the other side? A little bit.
So the floor of heaven is the glass.
Yeah, yeah. That's what it sounds
Crystal.
like, at least.
Right. Or the floor of the throne room is made of the same material then.
I want to go back a little bit further though. Where he is saying he'll that the watchers will have to basically watch their children, be killed in front of their eyes.
Yeah.
It is my theory, especially since whenever I realized kind of the connections of everything. The legend behind Clash of the Titans.
Mhm.
This is that.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. The legend behind the Titans at all. The Greek mythology.
Mm-hmm.
I said it the other night. The Greek gods are fourth generation, so I mean they can't be eternal because they're or immortal, I guess, because their parents died and their parents' parents died and their parents' died,
Yeah.
but somehow they're immortal. Okay. Anyway.
Alright.
But yeah, the Titans are supposedly locked in Tartarus.
Interesting. I probably read that. I just
They
don't
got
don't
it a
remember
little
right
bit.
now.
They got it close to right. It's not it's not the Titans that are locked in Tartarus. It's their parents, the angels.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe they're locked in Tartarus too with them. I don't know.
It's possible.
It's possible.
Okay. Alright. Alright. It was at 15 where you stop basically.
Well,
Okay.
I kind of want to talk about this house again.
Shoot.
Like I know it's a vision, right?
Yes.
But he's taken somewhere in his vision.
Okay.
And everybody that says they're taken somewhere in their vision, they're taken to heaven, they're shown things or whatever, I assume they're real things. They're just taken in their spirit, and shown these things, right?
Yeah.
They don't know if they're in their body or in their spirit, but they're shown things. That's how Paul described it when he went up to heaven, right? So I think he was taken up to the house that the watchers were supposed to be living in when they're doing their job. That it also says in the Bible that they left their estate and went down to heaven, right? But he goes up and sees that their house is empty, and it doesn't give him a good feeling inside the house anymore. And God also says in other places that when the evil people move out of their house, destroy the place because it's cursed. You don't want to go there. You don't want to be inside it, right?
Interesting.
Am I right or am I wrong on that? I think I remember that, but
I don't remember, but it does sound right.
destroy their houses and you bury them, and then you can build on top of them, but
Yeah.
don't live in their house. And it would make sense to not live in the other house. But I think it's interesting that its heaven is water, like it's not underneath the throne room; it's underneath the water that's above. So it's like embedded in the firmament.
Interesting. I didn't even catch that. Good
Yeah.
catch.
So like he was taken up to the heavenly estate of the watchers. They're supposed to sit in the firmament there
And watch
and
over everything and report everything.
Left their estate to go sleep with the beautiful women they saw.
And
So I think it goes right along with everything the Bible says already.
Now, I feel like I kind of have to make mention of this. It's a large misconception in both the Jewish community and also in just Christianity in general. that basically, God hates women. He's always bashing them. And, especially what we just read. They defile themselves with women. It and I want to say it was either something
No,
Paul wrote or someone else that that says Jesus was temporarily made lower than the angels, which means that the angels are higher than us on a ranking,
yeah,
and so by them coming down and sleeping with him, they were going down to us.
yeah.
That's why it says they're defiling themselves with women, because they were basically demoting themselves, essentially.
They were making themselves unholy doing something they weren't supposed to do.
Yeah.
The way they chose to defile themselves was with women. If they only taught bad things, then the way they chose to defile themselves was teaching bad things. The
Mm-hmm.
way one of them chose to defile himself was getting Eve to eat the apple.
Mm-hmm.
He's still defiled,
Yeah.
but he's not so defiled that he can't still talk to God. I don't think, just because it also says that Satan walks up and down and then goes and talks to God in his little meeting place or whatever.
Yeah.
But maybe at that point God comes down to that house to meet the watchers and get the report. Who knows?
True. Yeah, because obviously, if God did hate women, then he wouldn't choose a woman to give birth. He wouldn't have even created women in general. So it's a large misconception.
I mean, women are necessary.
Exactly.
I wouldn't. I don't know what I'd do without my wife.
Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about the first house?
um, no, I don't think so.
All right. Cool.
Okay. So in 14, we're picking up in 14.
That's fine.
And as I was shaking and trembling, I fell down on my face and saw a vision. So it's like a vision in a vision, I think. Like he's in the house, and then like in a vision he's taken up to the house, and then now he's having another vision
Talk
in the
about
house.
Inception.
Right. And behold, there was a second house, larger than the other, all whose doors stood open before me, and it was built with a tongue of fire, and in all things it excelled in grandeur and magnificence and size, so that I cannot describe to you its magnificence and its size. Its floor was fire, and above it was lightning and the course of the stars, and its ceiling was also a flaming fire. And I looked and saw therein a high throne. Its appearance was like the hoarfrost, and its circular and no, sorry, and its circuit like a shining sun, and voices of the cherubim. And from under the great throne came streams of flaming fire, and it was impossible to look at it. And he who is great in majesty sat thereon. His garment shone more brilliantly than the sun, and was whiter than any hail. None of the angels were able to enter, nor any flesh to look upon the form of the face of the majestic and honored one. Fire of flaming fire was round him, and a great fire stood before him, and none of those who were around him could approach him. 10,000 times 10,000 were before him, but he required not any holy counsel, and the holy ones who were near him did not leave day or night, nor did they depart from him. And I had so long a veil upon my face, and I trembled. And the Lord called me with his own voice, and said to me, Come hither, Enoch, and to my holy word. And he caused me to arise, and I went to the door, but I bent my face downwards.
One thing
So
that
that's
that really caught me was the describing of the house. It was in 17. In my version says its floor was a fire, and above it was lightning, and the path of the stars, and its ceiling was a flaming fire. And then also in 18, and I looked and saw a throne set on high. Its appearance was like crystal, and its wheels were like shining sun, and there was a vision of the cherubim. It, see if I can word this efficiently. It it almost seems like where do you think this house was like kind of near the firmament too, or in a higher heaven?
well, I don't um I thought about that, and I don't know. I don't know if this is the throne room um of God. I mean, it might be the throne room
It,
sitting right
yeah,
on top of the firmament.
it's possible.
Um, and I don't. I mean, I don't know. The only thing that makes me think that maybe not that, but maybe like a lower throne room, like not the main throne room, because we don't ever see angels hiding their face in that one, do we? We see everybody praising him and worshiping him and surrounded by the elders. But if he was in a lower throne room, then the lower angels might not be able to look at him.
That's possible. We're not saying it's
So,
true, but it's anything is
right. I
possible at
mean,
this point.
we don't know how this place is made
Yeah,
for real.
yeah,
We have
literally.
no idea. We have no way of knowing what places God made and where he made them. This is the only guy that was really shown everything. So, um, but it would make sense because you do see the angels in heaven praising and worshiping him,
Hmm.
and that these are different angels. Like it's not in heaven. And I do think that you're probably right. He did point out that the stars are still up there, so it's below the firmament. It's not, you know,
Hmm.
it's below the stars, so it can't be heaven.
Yeah. Shane Nelson on Facebook brought up an interesting perspective. He's saying he thinks it's like a heavenly temple. Each house represents a room. The first house is the outer room. The house of fire is a throne room, just like the temple on earth. Which that's possible too.
Yeah, and I'm also reminded of maybe it's the New Jerusalem already being prepared,
Yeah.
um, ready to drop down. His Jesus said that his father's building a mansion with many rooms, right? Maybe
Mm.
that's the mansion that he's building.
Yeah.
It's all good points. Who knows?
Exactly. All right. I will read 15. All right. And he answered and said to me, and I heard his voice, "Do not be afraid, Enoch, you righteous man and scribe of righteousness. Approach and hear my voice. Go and say to the watchers of heaven, for whom you have come to intercede, you should and you should intercede for men and not men for you. Why and for what cause have you left the high, holy, and eternal heaven, and had sex with women, and defiled yourselves with the daughters of men, and taken to yourselves wives, and done like the children of earth, and begotten giants as your sons? Though you were holy, spiritual, loving the eternal life, you have defiled yourselves with the blood of women, and have begotten with the blood children with the blood of flesh, and as the children of men, you have lusted after flesh and blood, like those who die and are killed. This is why I have given men wives, that they might impregnate them and have children by them, that deeds might continue on the earth. But you were formerly spiritual, living the eternal life, and immortal for all generations of the world. Therefore I have not appointed wives for you, your spiritual beings of heaven, and in heaven was your dwelling place. And then it actually gives a reference of Luke 20:34-36. And now the giants who are produced from the spirits and flesh shall be called evil spirits on the earth, and they shall live on earth. Evil spirits have come out from their bodies, because they are born from men, and from the holy watchers their beginning is of primal origin. They shall be evil spirits on earth, and evil spirits they shall be called, spirits of the evil ones. As for the spirits of heaven, in heaven shall be their as for the spirits of heaven, in heaven shall be their dwelling. But as for the spirits of the earth, which were born on the earth shall be their dwelling. And the spirits of the giants afflict, oppress, destroy, attack, destroy, and cause trouble on the earth. They take no food, but do not hunger or thirst. They cause offenses, but are not observed. And these spirits shall rise up against the children of men and against the women, because they have proceeded from them in the days of the slaughter and destruction. Then the author's notes, these are the evil spirits and demons. They are the disembodied spirits of the offspring of angels and humans. And that actually also gives a reference to the book of Jubilees here. I'm not going to read all that. And that's okay. That's the end of that chapter.
I think it's interesting in 11, and the spirits of the giants who cast themselves upon the clouds will be destroyed and fall. Interesting. The ones that try to break their way into heaven. Maybe.
Possibly.
And will battle and cause destruction on the earth. Yeah.
It's really interesting how this kind of ties in everything. You know, people who have not read this book or any of the Apocryphal, you know, everyone's wondering where did evil spirits, where did demons come from, and they automatically think that, or they're taught that, you know, this one being, Satan, has his own kingdom, but they fail to think, how did he get his kingdom? And why does he exist whenever, supposedly in their minds, God only creates good? But then in, I want to say Psalms or Proverbs, he says, I create good and evil, light and darkness. So that kind of just flips things, it flips people's worlds upside down.
He, in at least in a way, did, because he knew what would happen.
Yes.
He knew everything that was going to happen. He knew the angels would do that,
Yeah.
and he knew the demons would have a purpose. He turns all bad things for his good.
Correct.
So, I mean, yeah, in a sense, he did, because he started the whole thing and he knew it would happen, and he didn't do anything to stop it. So he may as well have created it. That's the point of Job. You can blame everything on God if you want to,
yeah,
because he didn't stop it. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
God let it happen to you. Now you can sulk, or you can find out why he wanted you to get stronger.
Yes. And Adam actually mentions, and I know of this theory, and I can kind of see it. I don't fully ascribe to it yet, but this goes into the theory that Earth is a prison planet.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's a planet. I think it's a plane.
Well,
so
you get the concept. And I personally
believe it's creation.
That,
I think it's everything that is created. So, I mean, you can call it a prison if you want to, but it's
basically, we're here to improve ourselves and grow into what we were born to be, basically.
Yeah, it's a learning ground. It's not a prison, because we're not trapped. We have to do it once. It's school. It feels like a prison.
Mm-hmm.
It sure as heck feels like a prison sometimes. But it's school. That's what it is.
Yeah.
All of life is a lesson trying to teach you to love, pretty much.
Yeah.
Put other people before yourself.
And
To love everybody.
I'm, I, I,
Not do anything for
mm-hmm.
personal gain necessarily. Do it for good reasons. Yeah, you're gonna gain along the way. It's not a bad thing to gain.
Yeah.
But gain the right way.
And this is my personal perspective and belief, and I think other people will agree, is that it's also one of the reasons why people, they may not even like acknowledge it or even see it, but that's kind of one of the reasons why sometimes life it life seems like it's much harder at times, and they kind of down the events downslope a little bit, and then
Yeah.
they upslope again, and then the downslope. It goes in waves. It's just because, one, you know, times of testing, but also times of giving us rest in between the times of testing, or maybe even, whenever we're up on a high hill, we're like, yes, and then we enjoy that. Then all of a sudden we find out, wham, we just hit the valley again, and we don't understand until we come to the right perspective of saying,
And
it's
it
life is a
might be
test.
not just testing, it might just be punishment because we start slipping, you know.
Yeah, that's a good perspective too.
It might be. You never know. It's a case by case situation. Sometimes it's going to be a test, and sometimes it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be a correction.
Yeah.
We gotta take that into consideration. Everything can't be a test.
Yeah,
I
and
mean, we're
that's
not perfect.
yeah.
We're not perfect. We have to take correction, or we're not. What are we doing?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, well, that's where the
We're not learning. Yeah.
yeah, that's where the
Sorry.
perspective and where of like being on like the top of the mountain, like, yes, achievement, I did the good thing, and then all of a
Mm,
sudden within a month or two, all of a sudden you feel like you're back down in a hard slope. It's like, yeah, you were at the top, and now you got used to that, and now you're going back uphill. You're
yeah.
maybe not fighting, but you're kind of battling the next thing.
Yeah.
You achieved the next great thing, but now it's time to move on to the next great thing, and now that's the challenge. That's the mountain that you got to climb up.
Yeah.
All right. All right. 16. I think it's 16. Yeah, it's 16.
Yeah. Okay. And of the death of the giants, when the spirits have proceeded from the bodies, their flesh shall decay without judgment. Thus they shall be destroyed till that day when the great judgment over all the great world shall be completed over the watchers and the impious. Now this I had never even thought about before,
Oh.
but I know some conspiracy people out there that um, look at mountains and things and say, look, this is like a giant. Look at it this way. Look at it this way. Look at it this way. Some of those things might be truer than we give credit for.
I'm
Yeah.
interested in your and the
Well, I mean, just,
elaboration of that
just let me
perspective.
read this again and think about that.
Okay.
And of the death of the giants, when the spirits have proceeded from the bodies, their flesh shall decay without judgment. Thus they shall be destroyed till that day when the great judgment over all the great world shall be completed over the watchers and the impious. So it's like he's going to turn their bodies into something that can slowly crumble over time, like a mountain, like a cliffside. That's crazy. But it actually is backed up right here just a little bit. And I
It's
had never even
hmm.
considered that as anything more than crazy until just now, for real. I've seen those videos though. I don't know if y'all have, but
I've never thought of that before. I never kind of put those two together. Now, if if that's the case, I would think that obviously those would be some of the smaller ones because unless those things were so massive that they
Well, I'm
like they
talking
lay
about
down.
cliff sides. I'm talking about mountains, like small hills at least, like
Mm,
hundreds of feet long, huge, as tall as a cedar tree, the side of a cliff, like a bluff that you can rappel off of. I mean, these. Um, I don't know if I can find a picture quick enough, but maybe I'll find one and show it at the beginning of the next one or something.
either that, or you can probably upload
A
to
little
the
video.
chat that's going on.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Um,
Hmm.
has anybody said anything about that in chat? Does anybody know what I'm talking about? At least,
Um,
I don't know.
Not that is referring to the
Okay.
mountain theory,
Okay.
but there is
Um,
probably like a 10 or 20-second delay, so if
okay.
something does pop, I'll let you know.
And I'll just finish out the rest of the.
Okay, Adam did just mention something. The world used to be silicone based, then the trees got cut down and the planet turned to carbon based, and when the world became carbon based, everything turned to stone.
Mm,
I don't think that's quite where you're going with it.
I don't. No, that's not. I haven't heard that before, and I don't think that's true because humans survived the flood and are exactly the same as we were before, except a little shorter and smaller and weaker, and you know,
Mm,
we're devolving, not evolving. We're getting slower and stupider
yeah.
and smaller, and you know,
And
it,
that
it,
kind of goes along with the narrow path, wide path thing.
yeah. Um, but I've heard that's not exactly what I'm talking about. I
Yeah.
Some things that people say, like the some mountains are big trees that have been chopped down, like that big pillar in the Devil's Tower in Arizona. If you look at it right, it looks like the trunk of a tree or whatever.
Hmm.
That's a little out there to me because if you took that tree to its extent, it would um, I don't know. That's a little big even for me to. I don't know. And I
Yeah.
believe some pretty crazy things, but I really hadn't thought about it. But so there's also some people that just look at you know mountain ridges and stuff and make some connections. And I watched a video about a local ancient story in North Dakota
Hmm.
of a giant that the Indians killed that became a mountain.
Really?
Yeah. Um, I can't. I'll share that YouTube in the thing because it'll be in my history. I'll find that one for sure.
Okay.
But I did. I just watched it like last week. It's pretty crazy.
Hmm.
But yeah, there's giant. There's legends of giants all over North America, and all the mound building people. Those mounds are giant graves. That's what they are. So that's why we can't dig there. They're national. They're whatever. They don't want to dig up the bones of giants, so they say it's a religious ancient site, and you can't dig there for any kind of archaeological reasons. It's
Hmm.
just blocked off because they know what you're gonna find, and they don't want you to. Pretty much.
Interesting.
Old Indian burial grounds, but it's not the Indians; it's the people the Indians killed. That's
Yeah.
the giants. Anyway,
All right.
and now to the watchers who have sent thee that thou shouldst petition for them who were formerly in heaven, say, ye have been in heaven, and though the secrets were not yet revealed to you, still you knew illegitimate mysteries, and these ye have in the hardness of your hearts related to the women, and through these mysteries women and men increased wickedness over the earth. Tell them therefore you have no peace.
Yeah.
illegitimate mysteries. I'm not sure exactly what he means by this, but everything's going to change with the new earth.
Yeah.
And anything that we learn about how this earth works is not going to matter.
Mm-mm.
So maybe that's why it's illegitimate. It's knowledge that doesn't last. It's only as good until this place is destroyed. So you can learn how to use it, just don't abuse it. And you know what? Don't hold on to it too hard, because what's eternal is your soul. And don't sell your soul for some little trick.
God. It's just the
You
amount
can
of.
learn how to do a whole lot of things. You can learn how to
Yeah.
manipulate a whole lot of things. You can learn how to talk to dead if you want to. I wouldn't recommend it. You can learn how to do all sorts of things if you want to. They're really there. They're really possible. And those are the legitimate mysteries that these angels teach and taught to women. And they got passed down through their children and through their children and through their children. And, you know,
It
if you
just.
tempt them enough, they might teach you now.
Mm-hmm. Just
Or the
the.
demons might
Yeah.
answer the questions because they already know. They
Yeah.
already know the answers.
It's like the just the amount of.
They've already taught it, but they already knew it. They were
Yeah.
masters. They were
Yeah.
masters
It's
at
like.
the illegitimate mysteries, as God puts it.
It still baffles me the amount of judgment that has come upon them for just doing all this stuff. It's like.
And what did they teach? They taught the movement of the stars.
Mm-hmm.
They taught horoscopes and that kind of thing. They taught, and it's illegitimate. It doesn't matter. It's not anything important, but they used it to gain an advantage. They
It,
used it for their personal gain.
it really makes you wonder what would have happened if none of this, the adversary came, first sin, okay, but what would have happened if the angels never came down? We have all this stuff that goes on,
Mm.
and all this stuff in the Old Testament happens, and even that was kind of a side mission of Jesus whenever he came down, because the whole thing with the Watchers is like, but what would have happened if the Watchers didn't do anything? I honestly believe the Bible would the story would have been completely different.
Yeah, it could have been. It very well could have been, but
Mm-hmm.
that might be part of the reason why we judge the angels in the end.
Yeah, and again, we may never even fully understand
But he
why.
knew. Yeah, that I don't. I get what you're saying, and you're absolutely right.
Yeah,
If they hadn't done that, it would have been different.
yeah,
The world might not have been destroyed by a flood the first time. We might have not needed the flood at all, but we'd still be
mm-hmm.
where we're at.
Yeah, just not nearly
And
as bad in
we
my
still
opinion.
need a savior. We
Yes.
just wouldn't needed a flood, and we might not have so many demons.
Yeah. Yeah.
But um, God knew what was going to happen. So you
Exactly.
know, I don't put too much thought into those
No.
things because God knew it was going to happen. You can't go back and change it.
Yeah.
Um, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you're right, and thinking about it is cool. And
Yeah.
yeah, if that
I
hadn't
I
happened,
agree. I don't.
we'd be right where we are,
Yeah.
needing the savior about it at the end, because that's all the time that humanity can last, because we're selfish and
Yeah. There have been times whenever
fewer and fewer people.
I thought on this stuff, and like I felt sorry for the father because that stuff happened, but like I personally don't believe we'll fully have a full idea and understanding probably until either until we die and go up there, or until the New Jerusalem, whenever we can ask him anything and get to the full understanding. Because I'm curious.
Yeah.
I'm curious to why the judgment was so harsh I kind of want to know what the original plan was. But that's just me.
Well, I mean, this all is the plan, but why was the judgment so harsh? I
Yeah.
mean, the only thing that makes sense to me, if they knew better, they knew better. They knew they might not have known what was going to happen to them,
Mhm.
but they knew they weren't supposed to do what they did, and they're eternal beings. What you can't have a, I mean, I don't know. I don't
I
know.
think
They
mhm.
they were created. They did their what they were created to do,
Mhm.
even though God wished they didn't do it and wanted, because He doesn't want anything to be evil.
Yeah.
He just gives free will, and it happens. You know.
Yeah. I personally believe that. I think that they screwed up something like even more than what was supposed to be done. Does that make sense? Yeah, the Lord knew that it was going to happen, but like I think that they screwed up something like royally bad, and that's why the judgment was so bad.
Yeah, maybe so because because of the reason that He had to destroy it by the flood was to cleanse the earth.
Mhm.
The whole earth needed cleansing
Yeah.
after less than 1,000 years because of what the angels did.
Exactly.
And it's taken at least, six for us to screw it up like that. And we're not,
Yeah.
we're not, yeah, I mean, it turned so violent, so blood oriented, so
Mhm.
evil. So I mean, that's all the bad things you can think about from the Canaanite religions and stuff that after the flood, sacrificing their babies, passing the babies through the fire to Molech is what they were, saying, trying to send their babies to heaven through the portal in the fire. I mean, I don't know what they
Yeah.
got tricked into it to begin with, but
Mhm.
they're being dumb.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and it was just so blood oriented. It's all cannibalistic. The giants were cannibals. They ate humans. They ate other giants. They ate
Mhm.
whatever they could just because they couldn't fill their bellies.
Because they're so
Um,
massive.
and it even says that they sinned against all the animals on the earth. Now, I don't know if that's because they started eating them or they started mixing their
I think it's a
blood or they
combination.
started. I think the blood has a lot to do with it because
Yes.
that comes up a lot in blood for sin and atoning, accounting for all the blood you
Mhm.
spill of animals. You better have done it for a good reason. It better
Yeah.
it better be for a good reason. You know,
I definitely agree.
because anyway.
Yeah. I think this is probably a good place to stop for the night because we still
Yeah.
have a lot more to go,
Oh yeah.
because this portion actually goes even further in. It's too much to go through. We probably
That's
here for
actually
full.
the end of the section in my book. So hey, we'll
Perfect
start it.
timing on my
It
in
is.
my book, and the one I'm using for Mondays. It just goes on and on. So,
Okay, yeah.
but nice. All right.
That's
So
yeah. That's the end of section 3 and into section 4, according to my numbering, I guess.
yeah. Uh, so I hope everyone enjoyed it. Tune in next week for as we continue with Enoch. As usual, don't forget to go. If you're watching on Facebook, go and like my Facebook page and join the group. Both are called the Gothic Mystic. Go to the website to just look around www.thegothicmystic.com. And if you're interested in support, you can also go using the website. It'll be There'll be a donate button on the top right, or just go to patreon.com/thegothicmystic. Hope y'all enjoyed it, and we will see y'all next time.